If you want access to Dr. Jake's entire library of past webinars, as well as access to future ones, head over to daringventuresathome.com or click the link in the description.
This webinar is on a tool that I designed. It's been a couple years ago and I've refined it a bit over time. A tool that I call Making Saves. Saves is an acronym that I'll teach you here in a little bit. First part is C. Here's what I mean by that. What are the small signs that let you know that your partner is in distress, possibly triggered? Okay. What are those signs that help you to know that? So in other words, you have to start with awareness. Now, the reality is that we're all looking at these signs non-consciously. Our right brains are always scanning social cues. The trick is to bring it into awareness. So I actually do an activity. I've got a whiteboard over there, and couples, we map this out on the whiteboard, and I have them list, what are the signs that your partner might be triggered? And so I hear things like, she gets really quiet, or she gets really loud. I say, well, what about the eyes? Do the eyes change? Yeah, they get squinty or they open wide. How about the mouth? Yeah, she purses her lips together. Okay. Or what about, body language? Well, she slumps or she turns away, or she's using her hands a lot. Okay. I mean, so what are the signs? What are the cues? Well, she's really quiet. She turns her back to me when I walk in. Okay. Let's know what they are. All right. Let's not let them just be read implicitly. Let's make them explicit so we can notice them. We start with awareness. Okay. Then the question is, what then do we do with the awareness? And this is important. So if you're a recovering addict or someone who has betrayed your partner and you're wanting to use this tool, the first thing I would say to you is you've got to know those cues. And then as soon as you recognize that they're going on, you've got to decide, what am I going to do with this? Okay. What am I going to do with this? Because here's what often happens. One of three things. What a lot of guys, and I say guys, it could be the female who's done the betraying too. We've had that in my office as well. Here's what a lot of folks do when they see their betrayed partner's signs of distress. 1, run away, go hide, hope it blows over. 2, they ignore it and try to make light of it or distract them, talk about something else, cheer them up, change the subject, something like that. All right. 3, they anticipate a fight and go ahead and start it. What's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? What's going on? Let me tell you, all 3 of those are not going to get you what you want. Not if what you want is a secure, healthy, close, warm attachment relationship with your partner. Okay. What do all 3 of those say? Running away says, I'm out, I'm gone. Does that help the attachment? No. Number 2 says, you're putting out these signals. I'm going to ignore them. I don't see you. And even if I do see you, I don't care enough to respond to these signals that you're putting out. Not consciously, okay, but in the right brain, that's the experience of it. Or number 3, you're attacking me. You're not safe. You think about it, go all the way to the bottom of the iceberg of that trigger. What's it really about? Okay, she saw you on your phone and she's triggered. What's that about? It's not about porn. What's the problem with porn? Porn's a threat. Threat to what? To her. In what way? What would she lose? You in your relationship. That's the threat. Every single trigger that's a trigger from betrayal trauma, it is ultimately, you go all the way to the bottom, it's about loss of the relationship or disconnection. And so if I run away, or I send the message, I don't see you, or I send the message, you're not safe, I'm going to attack you, we're not okay, that's not going to help the trigger. So I've got to have awareness of the signs, And then I've got to decide, what am I going to do with that awareness? And what you need to do every time is lean in. Here at Daring Ventures, we say, choose connection. So what you say is, I notice, and you're very specific, and you say it warmly, you say it with soft eyes, gently. Hey, I noticed that since I walked in a few minutes ago, you've been really quiet, and you've had your back to me a lot, and your shoulders are kind of slumped. Or I might say, hey, I'm noticing that you're using your hands a lot and your voice sounds more strained and your eyes are squinting a little bit. So I'm not saying it in a judgmental or a harsh way. I'm pointing it out, and then I flow right into the next one, which is ask. So I'm going to ask, are you triggered right now? You will never create a trigger by asking if she's triggered. It won't happen. You'll never create a trigger by asking if she's triggered. Are you triggered right now? So I noticed that you've had your back to me. You've walked away from me a lot. Seems like you're avoiding, trying to get distance from me. Are you triggered right now? Best case scenario, best answer would be, no, I had a bad burrito for lunch and it's really kind of tearing me up. Great. Now, guess what? You don't have to tiptoe around. You don't have to be now hyper vigilant thinking a fight's going to start or something like that. Great. Here's what's probably going to happen, though. She's probably going to go, yeah, I'm triggered right now. All right. But let's talk about why these two steps are important to start with. What does this do for the brain? Okay, that's the question. And the answer is this. Self-reflection is a right prefrontal cortex activity. So if I say to my wife, hey, you've been really quiet. You look sad on your face. You've kind of been sitting over there by yourself for a while. Are you triggered right now? If I say that to her, I'm actually, as I'm naming that, I'm trying to help her, in a way, put her prefrontal cortex back online, being self-reflective, naming these external cues, which is causing her to draw attention, turn inward, be reflective, asking that self-reflective question, are you triggered right now? Self-reflection. So it's already pulling her out of the limbic system back into the context right there from the beginning. And then she can say, yeah, I am. Or she can say no. All right, which tells me that wasn't going on in the first place. Or she might say, it's not a trigger from you. It was this other thing that happened. Then we can talk about that. But let's say that my partner, my betrayed partner, says, yeah, I'm triggered right now. And I say, well, tell me what's going on. And they share a little bit. Or maybe I know what just happened. Maybe I just drove by a place where acting out happened. Or maybe, a song came on that I know is a trigger for her, or something like that. What happens next? So I've done SA, now next V, I'm going to validate. Now, when we validate, here's what you got to do. You got to be vulnerable. You need to be specific and you need to own it. The more vague you are, the more it's going to feel like minimizing or deflection. All right. So you say something like this. It makes sense to me that you would feel afraid right now. Let me make something up. It makes sense to me that you'd be afraid and angry that I'm 30 minutes later getting home than I said I would be. It must remind you of when I was having an affair and I would stay late at work to cheat on you. Now, the addict who's having to say that is going, oh my gosh, I don't want to say all that. I don't want to. But if you say it must remind you of what I did, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That sounds like minimizing. It sounds like you're running away from it. But if you own it, what does that say to her? I'm not alone with this. He does see that it affected me. All right. Now, this does two things to the brain. All right. One, it soothes the nervous system because they're not alone with their pain or their fear or their whatever it is. All right. So the whole nervous system is soothed by this. It makes sense to me that you feel hurt that you found out from so and so my meeting's canceled and I didn't tell you myself. It must remind you of when I used to not share any of my own recovery journey with you, and must have felt like we were going back there. All right. Now she's not alone with that. Not being alone automatically lowers the intensity of the emotion. All right. But it does something else that's really, really important. Okay. And that is that it helps that left-right connection that was missing in the brain, right? The reason why the right brain triggers come with such force, why it feels like we're reliving them rather than remembering them, is because they're not connected in time in the left brain. What does this do? It's taking their experience that feels overwhelming and like a present threat, and I'm helping them make that connection in time to what happened. That filing cabinet that's all jumbled up and mixed up, and that the left hippocampus is inflamed trying to get sorted out. I'm saying, oh, it's this file that's got you upset right now. Oh, it was this one that reminds you of this that happened when I did that. And so it actually helps bridge that gap, which is a movement toward healing. After I validate, then I'm going to empathize. All right. This is demonstrating compassion by showing that I can imagine how my partner feels. All right. So I would say something like, I can feel how scared you are right now. Or if I don't feel it, if the word feel doesn't fit there, that's okay. You can say, I can see how afraid this makes you. I can see how angry you are. I know you're really hurting right now. Okay. Name it, right? So naming the emotion, as I said a minute ago, I think naming the emotion, it lessens the intensity of the emotion. All right. Not to zero, but it might take it from an 8 to a 7. Right? Or from a 6 to a 5. And then the experience of that emotion with another person, experiencing those emotions with another person, lessens the intensity even more. There's a really, really fascinating piece of research that was done a few years ago where they put women into fMRI machines and administered electrical shocks to them. I know that sounds terrible. It was a small shock though. And then they did brain scans of their experience of the pain. Okay. First thing you need to know is that emotional pain and physical pain register basically the same way in the brain. All right. It hurts. All right. Registers the same in the brain. What they did, they put them in the fMRI machine, gave them these shocks. If they were alone, their brains lit up like a Christmas tree. Okay. And they reported, and then they self-reported a very high intensity of pain. If they had a stranger with them holding their hands, it was slightly less activity in the brain, and they reported slightly less intensity of the pain. If they had their partners with them, and if they were in secure attached relationships with their partners, good relationship with their spouse, basically, there was hardly any, it was like a blip in comparison of brain activity when the shock was administered, and they self-reported far less pain. What's up with that? Being with someone in the experience lessens the intensity of it. So that's why it's important to empathize and hold space, make space for that pain there where you're present with them. And then the last step is to secure, okay? The last step is to secure. With your partner's cortex back online and their nervous system less aroused, more regulated, they can actually receive comfort. So if you start with, I'm not acting out, I love you, it's okay, I'm not doing anything, nothing happened. First of all, you're probably saying that from a place of panic. That's not going to help. Second of all, even if you are trying to say it from a place of, grounding and security, if their frontal cortex is offline and their nervous system's dysregulated, that's not getting in there. You have to do all of those first steps, you know, help them get their cortex back online and turn down the noise level of the nervous system so that they can receive those words of comfort. All right? I'm here. I'm here now. I'm not acting out. I have your back. I choose you. You're safe. You're mine. Whatever those words, different words for different couples, different people, whatever those are, then you say those in the end. Here you're drawing on your core values. Okay. And in the end, if you're doing this, if you're making the effort to make a save, I've got to believe one of your values is connection. So you're choosing connection in doing this. And so in the end, what you've just done is, in that moment, you helped bring the prefrontal cortex a little more online. You have helped bridge the gap between left and right hemisphere and made some connections. You've lowered the intensity of the distress in the nervous system and opened a way for them to actually receive a securing statement.